What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Anderson here. So I'm going to try to make this a little quicker because if you start to see sweat beads forming, yeah, the AC decided to go out in the middle of the summer because we have like the worst AC people in America. Apparently, this is the second year in a row this has happened. But yeah, so second half of Star Wars Rebels season two, pretty good. Honestly, I feel like the only thing holding this show back, like the only thing that tends to make me tune out a little bit is the episodes that are solely focused on helping the rebels start to rise. Because while that is kind of interesting to see how it started from, nothing, a few little cells, a little bit all over the galaxy, slowly coming together and building this resistance to eventually fight back against the Empire, we still know how that story ends. And I feel like that's something that the prequels were very guilty of is they focused too much on getting from point A to point B, which was the originals. And that was the main focus that it felt like we were getting towards, is showing how the Emperor and the Empire came to be alongside Vader. And it felt like that was part of my problem with those movies was, well, we already know what happens. We already know how that story ends, so why not give us something else entertaining in the meantime? And I think that's why Obi-Wan tends to be a lot of people's favorite parts, because we got to see him grow, from Padawan to Master to eventually the Ben Kenobi that we saw in the originals. So for this show, it kind of feels like it's the same thing. We already know what happens with the rebels. We know that eventually they do rise up, they do get strong enough, and then they do defeat the Empire. So we already know the end goal. We already know how we get there. So the best parts of the show tend to be whenever we're focused more on just the characters, and we see more character growth. We get stories solely focused on these characters and seeing how they're coming together, seeing how they're growing, or in some cases growing in the wrong direction. It is probably the most entertaining part about this show, and overall it's still enjoyable. It's just I feel like those episodes tend to hold it back just a bit for me. And I think that's why those episodes, when you've got characters from the originals or from the prequels or whatever showing up, that tends to be when I lose little bit of interest, because it feels more like we're just referencing the Star Wars universe, which isn't. I mean, I'm not saying I hate the Star Wars universe by any means, but I would much rather focus on these characters because you've got me invested in them. And I already know what happens with Leia. I already know what happens with Lando. I know what happens with C3PO and R2D2. Those aren't characters that I'm as invested in. So those episodes tend to be the ones that I tune out a little bit more and I'm not as focused on. So that's just my own personal opinion. Maybe other people really enjoyed the references, really enjoyed getting to see some of these characters before they got to the original movies. That's fine. It's kind of an opinion based thing there. So, but yeah, overall though, second half of this season, it really progressed some things forward that I'm glad that it did. Still haven't taken any major risks yet. We kind of have, similar to how season one ended with, Ezra getting the scar on his face. We now have in the second season, Kanan, of course, loses both of his eyes. So it's a little bit more than just a scar on the face, but it still does feel like we're just sort of wounding the team a little bit. We're not really taking any major risks with the story writing, with the overall plot. It's just kind of we're seeing the team grow a little bit more. We're seeing them get knocked back a peg, but still managing to come over. That's most of what this second half of the season is, and what honestly most of the second season was. Which isn't, it's not bad. Again, I know it's more for kids, so I know they're not going to do anything super shocking or like gut wrenching, to have somebody just die. Even with Ahsoka, I kind of had this feeling when she was going up against Vader. I'm like, I don't think she's gonna die here though. I don't think she's just going to up and die. I think there's probably gonna be something where maybe it looks like she does, but then she comes back later, and that's kind of what they did. What I think we do see her walking down some cave, so she's not dead, but she's definitely out of the picture for a while. And I don't know, I feel like that would have been a good moment to really give this show a little bit more of an oomph, something deeper than just the base level stuff, and really kind of grow up your audience a little bit, because yeah, your audience should be a little bit older than little kids that can't handle seeing the characters they love die, you know? So I do wish that a few more chances had been taken with that. But it's still not bad. It's just something I would like to see happen. So maybe that we'll start to see that a bit more in season 3. Maybe I still feel like it's going to be season 4 where if they do decide to take any chances, that'll be when it happens. I don't think it'll happen until the final season. Granted, I don't know if they knew season 4 was going to be their final season or not, but if they did, I would assume they're like, yeah, okay, now we can we can have somebody die off and have an emotional moment. But not to say the emotion wasn't there, though. There were several good moments throughout the second half of the season that did bring the emotion, that did have that depth, have that heart to it. I mean, the final couple episodes were really, really well done, and the pace that they moved, bringing Maul back in, showing another Inquisitor, they definitely had a lot of good moments that did feel a bit more heavy. Did feel a little bit deeper, and showing that there is intelligence behind this writing. It's not just let's just throw whatever up on the wall and see what sticks. So I do appreciate it for that, and I'm glad the season ended on a high note, because for most of the second half of the season, I was just kind of feeling like, okay, we're moving along. We had 1 or 2 good episodes in there, but it wasn't anything that was really gripping me. These final 2 really did grab my attention and made me want to watch more. So I do appreciate those final 2, and I feel like definitely the highlights of the season for me. Let's see. There was one episode focused more on Hera, getting to know kind of her, I guess, family a bit more. We got to see her father. There were a couple good moments in that. It was kind of the typical parent doesn't approve of their child and their life choices and what they're doing. So you have that typical story, and by the end of it, they're like, yes, I approve of what you're doing now. It was pretty on the nose for all of it. There was one focused a bit more on Mandalore, so we got to see Sabine going back there and kind of some of the rough history she has there, which we already got to see a little bit more earlier on in the season, so it was nice to get a bit more continuation on that and seeing she doesn't really get along with a lot of the Mandalorians, it seems. So, there was one episode, probably the weakest one in my opinion, the one that I just really, from the beginning, when I saw what it was going to be about, I'm like, I feel like I might not like this episode. And that was the one where Chopper ends up getting stuck on the Imperial transport ship and has to talk to this one droid, AP5, I think is his name, and essentially forms a friendship with him and then comes back and say, it was just really dumb. I like Chopper as a character. He's not strong enough to be on his own, though. One of his strengths is when he's bouncing off, giving sass to the team. He's kind of a little bit of the wild card, so the team needs him to be available or needs him to be there, and he's not there because he's off doing his own thing. That's kind of the fun of Chopper. So to have an episode solely focused on him, I did not, I wasn't excited for it. And as the episode progressed, we got to see this AP5 droid and listening to him talk as well. Like, don't get me wrong, the voice acting was not bad, but he spoke very slow and methodical. And it sounded almost like a robotic Alan Rickman to me. I'm waiting for him to say 10 points to Slytherin. Like, it was just very slow, and so I'm sitting there waiting for him to finish his sentences, and it was just too much in one episode. So that was the weakest one for me. It was the only one that made me go, we're gonna be here for a while. Honestly, Zeb's episodes, he had 2 major ones where he was the focus. The first one was okay, finding the Lasat, going to their planet. It was fine, overall. I was a little weirded out that we didn't actually get to see their planet and see all of the Lasat that were down there still. I did wonder why that didn't happen. I don't know if they just ran out of time and couldn't animate it or what happened there. But the one thing that stood out to me in that episode, because overall it was fine, it was some good moments, getting to see almost how the Lasat have their own interpretation of the Force. And that one old lady talking about how you have the fool, the child, and the warrior in you at all times. It's just which one's going to be at what part of your life. I like that message, but the really big thing that I took out of it, that scene where they find the star, collapse star, I think it was, and it was just like this big, almost looked like a black hole, but it was It was white. Should I call it a white hole? That sounds wrong. But it was just like that big collapsed star thing. They get there, and I'm like, wow, that's a beautiful animation. And then all of a sudden, like, I hear these strings start playing. The music for that scene, and just the whole setup with, the Empire showing up. Callus has his team, and he got Hondo, which having Hondo back in the episode as well was just he he's so much fun. He's not exactly the most important character, and you always know he's gonna betray everybody. But he still has so many good fun lines. But they show up, the music is just swelling. You got this great violin orchestra playing in the background, and then as soon as Zeb realizes what he has to do and starts leading him through, all of a sudden, like, the choir comes in and is like just this loud chanting that sounds beautiful and haunting at the same time. They're shooting at them and the bullets are just like flying all over because of the gravity being all messed up. Beautiful scene. And I even looked it up after. I'm like, please tell me people are talking about that scene. And there is a Reddit thread specifically talking about that scene. I'm like, good. That scene deserves the recognition that it seems to be getting, because that was such a fantastic moment, and it really did. It made an overall okay, decent episode. It made it memorable to me. Like, I really did feel like that's a scene that's gonna stick in my head for a while because they did such a good job with just every single aspect of it. But the other episode was Zeb, where he's stuck on the ice planet or the ice moon of Geonosis with Callus. Pretty good episode. First of all, it gives Callus a little bit more depth. It shows that he is kind of a mindless slave in a way to the Empire. Like, he is sort of just doing whatever he's being told. But he's not only that. He does have the potential to change. And I feel like that's something that they showed in a couple episodes where they are trying to not just go in and kill everybody, because that's not their way. They don't want to do that. They want to try to find a compromise if they can. The one episode with the Mandalorians as well that showed that too. So it was interesting to see, especially with Zeb. He's probably the one out of the entire group that is the least understanding, the least sympathetic. So the fact that he and Callus were the two trapped on the planet, and especially because we know Callus was involved with the planet of Lasat being destroyed, or not destroyed, but just taken over and the Lasat being wiped out. It was a very interesting dynamic that I feel like they handled well, because it wasn't like by the end of it they're just completely okay with each other, but they've reached a mutual understanding. Callus realizes that these rebels maybe are not this evil group that he's been told that they are. Maybe the Empire is hiding some stuff from him. And even when he gets back to the ship, I think he sees just how close-knit that group is and realizes the trust that they have for each other, and then gets back and nobody cares that, oh yeah, hey, welcome back. Not even looking at him. It's like, I could have died there, and nobody seems to give a crap. So yeah, I really did find that interesting, and I don't know what they're going to do with Callus's character. He didn't appear for the rest of the season, so I don't know if they just hadn't figured out what to do with him yet. But I wouldn't be surprised if he comes back, maybe becomes a mole for the rebels, or tries to defect and ends up, what happened with Tua at the beginning of this season, where she died trying to defect to the rebels. Yeah, but it was a good episode, though, to show the depth of Callus's character, but also show the depth of Zeb's character as well. He's not just this mindless brute that, the dumb one on the team that just wants to fight all the time. There is a certain respect that the God, I've been saying Lasat. I don't know why the name of their people just left my brain, but there is a certain level of respect. They are a group of warriors. So finding out that the spear that Callus has was given to him because the warrior that he bested recognized that he was a superior fighter and gave him the spear. There is something kind of moving about that, and I'm glad that they do touch on that a bit more in that episode. So yeah, it was another solid one though. But yeah, the episode with Leia was just kind of there and gone. It was fun to see her little quippy back and forth with Kanan and with Ezra, but not much interesting. I think. Oh yeah, they do find a base near the end of the episode, which is just kind of like okay, well, this doesn't. I'm pretty sure this isn't the base that we see in the later movies, so I'm assuming this base is not going to last long, I guess. Um, but it was just kind of a, okay, so we found this base. We finally found a place to stay. Oh no, there are spiders here. We need to get rid of the big spiders, and that's kind of all that episode was. It was just kind of a here and gone type of thing. But no, the final two episodes, though, just to dig into a little bit more detail. First of all, the other Inquisitor, the eighth brother that shows up, Robbie Daymond, fantastic voice actor. Love having Akechi in on this show. I do hope, because obviously we do see the death of the seventh sister and the fifth brother at the hand of Maul in this episode. The eighth brother, so his thing got damaged. He started to fly away, and then it failed, and they fell. Obviously, falling from great heights is not necessarily the end of Jedi or Sith, or I'm assuming Inquisitor, as we've seen multiple people fall from great heights and survive. So I do hope he's still going to be around. I don't know if he's going to come back as the main threat for next season or not, but I assume we'll see more Inquisitors. I don't know how many there are. So I think in Fallen Order, I'm pretty sure Cal faces off against the ninth sister and the 11th sister, maybe? I don't remember the numbers now. It's been so long since I played the first one. And Survivor, I have played that one more recently, obviously, but even then I don't remember what the number of the big brooding sister was. But yeah, so I don't know how many Inquisitors there are, but it is kind of interesting to find out that the Grand Inquisitor used to be a Jedi Knight. You know, we see him knighting Kanan in that one episode where they find the temple. But yeah, it was nice to see kind of an interesting look into sort of Maul's, where he is now, like how he got here. The fact that the Inquisitors are hunting him down because he is sort of the past of the Sith. You know, he's somebody who he was betrayed by them and he wants to come back and try to take them down because of what they did to him. So the fact that he's almost become an enemy of the Sith to the point where they are hunting him now with Inquisitors, it was kind of an interesting turn of events. But seeing he very clearly still is evil, I did kind of suspect that he was going to be evil because that's just who Maul is. You know, even though he has been betrayed by the Sith, that doesn't mean he's suddenly a good guy. And I'm glad they're not trying to make him a good guy, because I was a little worried that they were going to do that with him. But I like the fact that, yes, he is still an enemy of the Empire, so he will be willing to help fight against them, but that doesn't mean he's just going to be like, okay, well, we're friends now, guys, so let's fight together. He's still going to try to have his own motives and his own plans put into place. So I appreciated that fact. What he's doing with Ezra, it's going to be interesting to see where Ezra goes from here, because even in the one episode with the Jedi Temple, we did see Kanan being told, yes, your apprentice, your Padawan, he has the chance to go down to the dark side, and we need to stop him before he does. So I don't know if they're saying like it's been foretold, or if they're saying that, you know, you just have to accept the fact that there's a chance he might do it and there's nothing you can do about it. I don't know. But seeing where Ezra is at the end of the season, you know, he is opening up the Sith holocron in the final scene with him. We'll see what happens. But I feel like because we've seen this sort of story a lot, you know, we've seen it done a lot where, okay, we've got a young Jedi who is coming in maybe a little too old to be a Jedi. You know, he's not quite grown up in the Jedi way. And so whenever you hit that sort of phase of you've really started to grow in the Force, your powers are getting better, but then all of a sudden the anger and the fear and all of that stuff starts to seep in more, and you start to realize how powerful you can be with the Force if you use that anger and fear. That's where it does start to feel as though, yeah, we maybe we are going to see our main character here turn to the dark side. I feel like I've seen that story quite a few times now. On multiple occasions. So it'll be interesting to see what they do different with him from here. I hope it's not just going to be the typical, you know, it seems he's going down the dark side. He starts to use the dark side powers a bit more. He starts to give in a little bit, but then there's this big moment that turns him, you know, changes his mind, and then he decides not to go down the dark path. He's like, no, I'm going to be a Jedi. Because that seems a little too cliche and a little too simple, even for a kid's show. So we'll see what they decide to do with it. But yeah, I do like the setup for it, though. I do like the fact that he is seeing, first of all, he's seeing things from Maul's point of view, because Maul is really just getting into his head for a lot of these final two episodes. But then he sees what Maul has, the powers he has, and almost the way of the Sith, how it's about helping each other in a way. You know, the way that the Sith temple is built, you have to have two people at all time to sort of help each other. You know, get the door up, and the next person gets the door up, and the next person gets the door up. And it's really interesting too, because a lot of time you'll see Sith betray each other. But you look at how this temple is built, if you betray each other, then there's a good chance that you're not going to be able to get out. You know, there's a good chance you'll be trapped, or you'll both die. So it's very interesting how that is. You know, we see so many Sith betray each other, but based on what we're seeing in these Sith temples and the way of the Sith and all of this, it does sort of feel like you need the two to succeed. And yet, why is it always there's a master and apprentice, and the apprentice takes over the master and takes on their own apprentice, and then the cycle continues? Either that, or you get Palpatine, who has this apprentice and then this apprentice and then this apprentice, and every single time the apprentice either outlives their usefulness or tries to kill him, that's when he moves on to another one. So yeah, I don't know. It's something that just sort of, as I'm watching them go through the Sith temple, it popped into my mind that I wonder if that's what they're trying to show, is that maybe the way of the Sith is not necessarily wholly evil, but it tends to turn that way because the people who follow the way of the Sith tend to be greedy, and they tend to be lusting for power. And so that's what turns, I guess, has perverted the way of the Sith in a way. I don't know if they're going to go that deep with it, or if it's just going to be, no, it's showing the strength of the two, but then because the Sith are just evil, like that's just how they are. They tend to betray each other in the end. I don't know. We'll see what they decide to talk about with it next. I do hope they go into more detail on that next season. But yeah, I think that's about it for the second half of the season. Overall, I did still enjoy it. You know, there were a couple more episodes in this second half that felt more filler, felt a little bit more, I'm just not as into it. But overall, I'm still having a good time. I still really do like the team. I like the characters, the way they banter off of each other. The writing as well, the dialogue, for the most part, is pretty good. You know, it's nothing like deep and profound, but there is a lot of good, clever writing, I feel, that most of the time in kids shows nowadays, you wouldn't see this type of writing. You would see a lot more stupid butt jokes and all of that stuff. So I'm glad that at least the dialogue writing for it is solid. And it is making me laugh quite a few times as well. So yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes from here. I do feel like, though, I am going to be taking a break now that I'm 2 seasons in. I do want to take a break and go into another show and just maybe do a couple different shows before I come back and finish out this one. Just because I have been watching a lot of this show, and I don't know, I don't want to get burnt out by it. And again, I do wonder if maybe I am nitpicking a little bit more the second half of the season because I have been watching so much of the show. I mean, I binged 2 seasons in 2 days. So, but yeah, I'm excited to see what's going to come next and what they plan to do with it. So that's it for me for the second half of the season. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on the second half? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Star Wars Rebels reviews, and I will see you guys whenever the next season is. Peace out.